Part 23. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 221. Within the Navy headquarters, it is rare for the warring states to have a leisurely chat with Carp over tea. In the office, two people sat opposite each other, quietly sniffing the fragrance of tea that permeated the room. It would be great if these days could go on. Although the battles of all sizes in the sea are still going on, the Navy is still in an absolutely advantageous position. After all, there is already absolute suppression in terms of numbers. If it weren't for the sea pirates in the New World, the seas would be much calmer. Carp said that he completely ignored the heartache expression on the face of the other Sengoku, and drank it directly. It's a waste of good tea for you to drink. The corners of Warring State's mouth twitched slightly, he shook his head helplessly, and didn't say anything more. His face was slightly constricted, and he said in a deep voice. Now in the New World, the country of Wano, which originally belonged to Kaido's forces, has now been gradually infiltrated by the world government, and it is estimated that it will not be long before it becomes the real controller. During this period, Arthur didn't make trouble, which was really unexpected. Sengoku touched his chin as he spoke, revealing a contemplative look. Maybe people don't look down on an island like Wano country at all. Carp said indifferently, but the warring states on the other side nodded matter-of-factly. It's a possibility. Wano country is rich in mineral resources, so Kaido turned it into an armor factory, but now Arthur's business chain has spread all over the sea. Speaking of this, Sengoku seemed to see the endless mountain in front of him, and sighed decadently. The wealth created by a small island every day is almost comparable to that of the entire sea, which is truly terrifying. Hearing Sengoku's emotion, Carp shrugged his shoulders indifferently. If Arthur can make money with peace of mind, it doesn't matter, and the things he sells are indeed good and cheap, but he is afraid of causing some turmoil on the sea again. At this point, both of them were silent. That's one of their biggest fears. On this sea, Arthur's small island has reached a high level of unity with the world government. Although in the New World, Kaido has replaced Kaido as one of the new four emperors. But those who know that the gold content is incomparable. The combined strength of the other three emperors may be able to compare to Arthur. Knock knock. At this moment, a hurried knock on the door came from outside, and Sengoku raised his eyebrows slightly and said softly, "Enter." The door opened, and a Navy man walked in, and the color of the information in his hand made Sengoku's eyes show a heavy color. After taking the information and opening it, Sengoku's face changed back and forth several times. "What's wrong? Is it about Arthur?" Sengoku nodded, proving Carp's guess and placing the information in his hand on the table. According to the information, Germo left the island with several Titan mechs. What? Carp's face showed a hint of shock. As far as he knew, the Titan mecha had never left the island at all. Now that he has been taken away by Germa's people, what kind of signal is released? Germa. Sengoku's face became a little ugly. I'm afraid this time it's extraordinary. Carp on the other side also nodded. Germa's reputation is not very good, and he is a war seller with great ambitions. It's a notable existence in itself, and now that you've got those powerful Titan mechas, the next actions are pretty much self-evident. I'm afraid the days of leisurely tea drinking are coming to an end now. Sengoku stood up from his seat. How do you handle this? Carp's brow furrowed and continued. If Arthur has the full support of this matter, even if our navy is dispatched as a whole, the effect will be minimal. Although Carp's words are morale-raising, Sengoku understands that this is the truth. From the initial dealings with the Arthur pirates to the present, it has been proven time and time again that Arthur has the combat power he possesses. If Arthur is only strong alone, it will not make Sengoku so jealous. The key is that everyone around him is equally strong. Each of them has the strength of no less than the admiral. While powerful, he is also very loyal to Arthur. In contrast, the Navy is at an absolute disadvantage. In any case, now that we know that Germa has taken action, our Navy cannot sit idly by. After Sengoku finished speaking, he immediately picked up the phone bug on the table. On the other side, in the villa in the center of Arthur's island. In the bright living room, Arthur sat on the sofa and looked at the light curtains in front of him. There is a lot of content in the light curtain, including pictures of the island and the actions of the naval headquarters, but Arthur is most concerned about the movements of Germa. Arthur didn't hint anything at Germa to him, but everything acted as expected. Captain, it is estimated that in 2 days, Germa will be able to enter the North Sea. Brynja, who was next to her, just glanced at it and estimated the approximate time. Today, Arthur's moons are all over the sea, and there are no secrets in the whole world. As for the detailed information about this world, Brynja naturally included it in the database as soon as possible. Is there still 2 days left? It's slow, but we're not in a hurry. Arthur reached out and stroked Teresa, who was lying on his lap like a kitten. Captain, the Navy seems to have made some moves, but only sent a warship. Mei Yi walked over from the side, stretched out her white and slender fingers and clicked on a light curtain in front of her. In the picture, it can be clearly seen that the direction of the naval headquarters where a warship sailed directly away is the North Sea. Warships can directly cross the windless zone, and they also have a special passage that allows them to reach one of the 4 seas at will, and they are definitely faster than Germa. Now, the Navy has also started to act, and now there is a good show. A smile slowly curled into Arthur's mouth. Captain, are we going to join in the fun? Kiana's eyes lit up as she spoke. It's a good idea to go out for a walk once in a while. Karine sat in the distance and nodded. Well, if you want to, then get ready, and we'll leave tomorrow. At the speed of Siberia, even if it is a day of departure in the evening, it is completely in time. Oh yes. When Kiana heard Arthur's decision, she jumped up excitedly, like a husky breaking free from her cage. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 222. The North Sea is a relatively chaotic area. Since entering the era of pirates, the North Sea has not been peaceful. Battles large and small take place from time to time, and the collusion between the pirates and the Navy is still the same. It is extremely difficult for ordinary people to live a stable life. It can be said that there is no big problem, and there are a lot of small troubles. Therefore, even the Navy headquarters does not know much about the affairs here. After all, ordinary small things can't reach the ears of the Navy headquarters at all. This has been going on to this day, until now. And on this day, on an ordinary sea area, a huge sailing ship appeared. The hull of the ship is huge, and it gives people a strong sense of oppression from a distance. The most striking thing is the giant snail below. Huge body, but very fast. Smooth and fast driving ahead. Above the wide deck, Vince Mokgeji's massive body stood tall and his gaze burned ahead. Finally in this area again. Wait, the prestige of the Vince Mok family will once again loom over the entire North Sea. Vince Mokgeji had absolute confidence and an insolent smile on his face. Now we're going to meet the descendants of old friends, and hopefully it's not so useless. Vince Mokgeji is talking about the 4 kings of the North Sea. The decapitation of the heads of the 4 kings and the painting of them made the Vince Mok family reach its highest prestige. After so many years, history is expected to play out again. Conquering the 4 nations of the North Sea, the Vince Mok family will once again stand tall above the entire North Sea. But things often don't go as smoothly as they seem. Just as Vince Mokgeji was heading to his first target, he saw the oncoming warship in the distance. It was none other than Sakaisuke, one of the 3 admirals of the Navy, nicknamed Akainu. Sakaisuke was born in the North Sea, so naturally he will not refuse this mission. And this time, it wasn't just Sakaski who was alone, but even Polusalino, known as the Yellow Ape, came with him. In addition to the fact that Polusalino was also born in the North Sea, another reason was that Sengoku was afraid that Sakaski would not be able to control the field alone. If this matter was only involved in the involvement of Vince Mokgeji's Germa, there would be no need for the admiral to intervene. But in this incident, there is indeed a figure that makes him quite jealous of Arthur. As for Arthur's thoughts, Sengoku did not know. But what Germa is doing in the North Sea is very clear. I can already see it. What are you going to do? Polusalino avoided Arthur in his heart, but as an admiral, we cannot sit idly by and watch the tasks assigned by the Navy headquarters. But fortunately, this time there was another general with him. As for Sakaski's character, Polusalino is very clear. Since the last time he suffered a loss in front of Arthur and returned to the Navy headquarters, he has been stepping up his training. Sakaski would never allow himself to lose his authority in front of the pirates. That's right, until now. Sakaski's positioning of Arthur is still a pirate. Sengoku knew a little about such thoughts, and he was more worried. But another general went on another mission and couldn't come back in a short time. How is it that there is only one ship left in the legendary kingdom of Germa? The look of doubt in Sakaski's eyes flickered, and he didn't pay much attention. Whether Germa is one ship, or dozens of ships, for Sakaski there is not the slightest difference. The distance between Germa, as well as the warships, is getting closer. Above them, at the same time, Hyperion was suspended in mid-air. For things that can be seen in the play, Arthur will never miss it. Inside the bridge of the Hyperion, everyone was looking at the big screen in front of them. Captain, look, they look like they're going to fight. Looking at the two ships that were getting closer and closer, Kiana's eyes blinked, full of anticipation. This time, the Navy dispatched two admirals, and the strength completely crushed Germa. Captain, do we need to help? Rita saw the form of the battlefield very thoroughly, looking at Arthur with an inquiring gaze. It's true that the Titan mecha is a big killer for ordinary people, but it is still a little vulnerable in the face of an opponent of the level of the Admiral. Karen, who was next to her, nodded in agreement. The chances of Germa coming back from defeat to victory are 0. Brynja's words have already determined the final result of Germa. So what are you waiting for? Miss Ben went down at once and beat the men to the ground. Kiana was in high spirits and waved her little fist to go out immediately. However, at the moment of action, he was pressed in place by Arthur. Wait a minute. Arthur shook his head and whispered. We are not Germa's nannies, meet the Admiral and let them figure it out on their own. In fact, Arthur just wanted to see how Germa would respond in the face of such a situation. And above the sea, Germa and the warship were far away and had stopped sailing. Did the little North Sea let two admirals come? What happened? Vince Mokgeji did not know that his actions had long been exposed to the eyes of the Navy. Faced with the highest combat power in the Navy, Vince Mokgeji is not arrogant enough to handle it himself. We're here for you. Polusalino said, his gaze slowly sweeping around. The sea was calm, and as far as the eye could see, there was nothing abnormal. Captain, is this Navy looking for us? Seeing Polusalino looking cautious on the screen, a smile appeared on the corner of Kiana's mouth. It should be. Arthur nodded slightly. For the spies planted by the Navy on the island, Arthur can be said to be very clear. He, you wouldn't have thought we'd be standing on top of them. For this behavior of Peekaboo, Kiana is obvious and finds it very interesting. On the screen, Vince Mokgeji's brow twitched slightly. As an ally of the world government, two admirals are blocking my way, and this behavior. All right, stop going around in circles. Vince Mokgeji's words were interrupted before he could finish his sentence. Polusalino waved his hand and said lazily. Your normal voyage, we will naturally ignore it. It's just that on your ship, It's not yours either. Let's keep these things. With a twinkle in his eyes, Vince Mokgei fully understood. As soon as his right hand was stretched out, someone next to him immediately sent a weapon. The meaning is self-explanatory. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 223. On the sea, the two ships were far away from each other, and the tension became more and more intense. Admiral Sakaski, although the attacks of those Titan mechs can't do us any damage, the warships under our feet can't withstand such a dense attack. Something suddenly came to mind, and Porisalino said softly. The attack that erupted from the Titan mecha did not carry domineering, and it was naturally unable to cause damage to those with natural devil fruit abilities. But the warship under his feet may immediately disappear after a salvo of the Titan mecha. They are currently in the middle of the sea, and warships are the only place for those with devil fruit abilities. If it is destroyed and falls into the sea, it will be a big joke. I am enough to deal with the people of Germa, and you will protect the warship. As Sakaski finished speaking, the lava on his arms began to churn. Without any hesitation, the body rose directly and flew in the direction of Germa. Fire! In the face of Sakaski's attack, Vince Mokgei did not hesitate at all. With a wave of his big hand, the Titan mecha behind him immediately burst out with countless cannonballs. Dense shells crossed the border like locusts. But it's a pity that in the face of the natural devil fruit ability, it is like nothing. The shell went straight through the body, and Sakaski didn't even look at it. The whole body was like a shooting star, smashing on Germa's sailboat. Rumble! A huge roar accompanied the flames into the sky, and the quiet ship was instantly chaotic. Well, I really shouldn't have come. Looking at the dense cannonballs in front of him, Porisalino reluctantly stretched out his hands. The invisible overlord color shrouded the entire warship. Hugh Bryan, seeing that the attack of the Titan mecha did not damage the warship at all, Kiana could hang an oil bottle with a pout. It's disgusting, Captain, and you look at his smug face, you can't wait to punch him twice. Seeing the curvature of the corners of Porisalino's mouth, Kiana looked unhappy. However, this was not a deliberate expression on the part of Porisalino, but it was nature. Now that he has provoked Kiana, he is really wronged. It seems that there is no suspense in this war. Looking at the screen in front of her, Rita's eyes sparkled. In the face of Sakaski's attack, Vince Mokgei was no match at all. And the strength of the Titan mech could not withstand Sakaski's attack. One by one, they were destroyed. Admiral, whose strength is located at the apex of the sea. Until this moment, Vince Mokgei really felt it. I thought that my strength was strong enough, but in front of Sakaski, he was as weak as a baby. The big knife in his hand slashed towards Saka's with 1,000 momentum. In the face of such a swift attack, Sakaski's gaze did not fluctuate in the slightest. With his right hand clenched into a fist, the lava condensed into a huge fist and smashed straight towards Vince Mokgei. Boom! There was a dull sound, and Vince Mokgei flew upside down like a kite with a broken string. And his children were already on the ground at the moment, unable to move. It's so strong. Struggling from the ground, slowly getting up, and looking at Sakaski as if he had returned from hell, Vince Mokgei's heart was dead. Ben came with great ambitions, but he didn't expect that as soon as he came to the North Sea, he was blocked by the Admiral. What I didn't expect even more was the difference in strength with the Admiral. Such a gap in strength cannot be overcome even by Germa, who has the power of science and technology. Then came the time of judgment. Sakaski walked forward step by step. With each step, a charred mark was left on the deck. Captain, it looks like the winner has already been decided. Looking at the screen in front of them, there was no surprise on everyone's faces. It's just a pity that these Titan mechs made them do things outside of their mission. Teresa seems to have some distress about these Titan mechs. But that's normal. The Titan mecha is not a particularly powerful existence, and it is indeed a big killer. Full coverage of firepower, crushing attack. But in the face of the level of an admiral, especially those with natural devil fruit abilities. In the absence of hailstone bullets, it is really a little reluctant. Let's go, these Titan mechs can't be completely destroyed, even if they were drawn by lottery. Can we finally go down and fight? Miss Ben couldn't wait. Kiana said with an excited look, wanting to be the first to take the lead. But the steps that had just taken were stopped by a hand. The ship, long. Kiana's body squirmed, a pleading expression. Okay Kiana, I'll leave it to Himiko this time. I believe that Himiko also wants to try her explosive power. As Arthur's words fell, everyone's eyes looked at Himiko, who was sitting on the side. Himiko, who was sitting at the round table, put down the wine glass in her hand and slowly stood up. The right hand gently stroked the red hair around the ear. A pair of beautiful eyes looked at Arthur with a smile on his face. Dear Captain, don't you just want to see the shape of the eclipse? The thoughts in his heart were suddenly revealed, which made Arthur smile a little awkwardly. During this time on the island, Himiko was successfully promoted to SSS level. Also unlocked the Scarlet Knight Eclipse armor. Originally, at the first time of unlocking, Arthur wanted to observe it. But it's a pity that Himiko's ability to hang people's appetites is too strong, so she doesn't let me see it. With this opportunity, Arthur naturally won't let it go. Ai-chan, open the hatch. Himiko took a step, and her slender body gradually moved away to the hatch. The cold wind blowing in the sky stirred Himiko's hair. Bow your head slightly and look down. Without the slightest hesitation, he jumped into the sky. In mid-air, she fell at a rapid speed, and a red light enveloped Himiko's body. Beyond the light, fragments of armor could be seen. The movement in mid-air caught everyone's attention. I'm a good girl. A bad premonition suddenly appeared in Porosalino's heart. The red light streaked across the sky like a meteor and smashed straight into Germa's sailboat. Huge flames rose into the sky, and finally scattered outward. In the center of the flames, a figure stood tall. Dressed in red armor, the standard large sword spread out like wings at his side, and the plague gem on his chest glowed with crimson fire. The infinite tower Himiko Ginseng. Drawing the big sword behind her back, Himiko looked at Sakazuki in front of her, and a smile curled up at the corner of her mouth. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 224. Above the sea, the originally hot situation fell into an eerie silence the moment Himiko appeared. It's really here, Arthur, but where? Polusalino stood on the deck of the warship, his face solemn, his gaze sweeping around. But as always, nothing has been found. Really? His eyes narrowed slightly, and an idea came to mind. Seeing and hearing the domineering spirit spread outward. The head was slightly raised, and his attention was focused on the void where Himiko had just appeared. Seeing and hearing domineering, you can sense the breath of the creatures around you, as well as the changes in your feelings. Sure enough. His eyes were fixed on the void where Huberia was invisible, and Polusalino pondered what to do next. According to previous understanding, it was impossible for Arthur and his party to act alone. Since one person has appeared, others must be around. The two admirals were only mistreated by Arthur. The thought in his mind rose up, and Porosalino had already retreated. Running errands for the navy or something, it's nothing. If he dies in the line of duty, it is not what Porosalino wants to see. However, when he saw the gradually rising fighting spirit around Sakazuki, he patted his forehead very nerve-wrackingly. Captain, we've been discovered. The moment she saw and heard the color, Brynja had already sensed the abnormality. For all kinds of domineering in this world, Brynja has carefully studied. It doesn't matter, the moment Heimko appeared, she didn't realize that we weren't that important. Let's watch Heimko's performance. Arthur's words made Fu Hua next to him frown slightly. Captain, the natural devil fruit ability, only those with domineering can attack entities, but Heimko. Fu Hua's meaning is already very obvious. Heimko is not domineering. In the face of a natural devil fruit ability, no matter how powerful it is useless to not be able to hurt the opponent. That's why I once said that each of you should be armed with colors, so that it will be much easier to fight, but it's a pity. If you use your armed color, your whole body will become black, so don't you? Kiana muttered, explaining why they resisted. You guys. Arthur shook his head helplessly. In the face of those with natural devil fruit abilities, in addition to having domineering, there is one more thing that can be restrained. Is the captain talking about Halustone? Arthur nodded, looking at the big screen in front of him, and showed a playful smile. It's just that I don't know when Heimko will use it, but it's really a little exciting. In the middle of the sea, above the sailing ship of Germa. Looking at Heimko who suddenly appeared, everyone's eyes were stunned. In addition to marveling at the way Heimko appeared, the momentum surrounding her body was also impossible to ignore. Fire! Looking at Heimko in front of him, Sakaski raised his eyebrows slightly, and there was a hint of relaxation in his eyes. Captain, it looks like Heimko is underestimated. Looking at the screen in front of her, Rita had a playful smile in her eyes. Heimko will teach him how to be a man in a moment. Heimko on the deck, with a large sword on her shoulder, clearly captured the meaning in Sakaski's gaze. A smile curled up at the corners of his mouth, the thumb of his left hand crossed his lips, and the expression on his face was somewhat unpredictable. The right hand was slowly clenched, and a layer of substance familiar to devil fruit abilities gradually emerged on the surface of the great sword. It's not good, it's Halustone. Porisalino's face changed. When he went to the island, Halushi's bullets made him suffer a big loss. In full view of everyone, the name of a lifetime was ruined. Is it a big sword made of Halustone? Sakaski's eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't flinch in the slightest. Halushi just made his body unable to naturalize, and if he wanted to truly defeat him, this alone was far from enough. Seeing that Sakaski was ready, Heimko didn't hesitate. His body sprang out like a tornado, and the great sword in his hand slashed towards Sakaski with flames. Rumble! A dull crash sounded, and the sailboat under its feet simply could not withstand such a huge force. Under the blow, countless cracks have been spreading. Oops! Vince Mokgagi, who was next to him, had clearly noticed the situation as well. Without any hesitation, the body soared directly into the air. The high-tech shoes on their feet allow them to float in mid-air for a short time. Rumble! Another loud explosion rang out. Flames and lava filled the entire hull. Just when Polusalino and Germa thought they were going to fall into the sea. The flames had cleared, and Germa's galleons had been reduced to pieces in the attack. But above the sea, the blue light emitted one by one, the small squares of a cubic meter were suspended. Neatly arranged, forming a huge platform. Heimko and Sakaski are far away from each other. In the next second, the attack was launched again. For a battle of this level in the Navy, Arthur naturally knew how destructive it was. So everything was ready early. It's still like this. Polusalino rubbed his eyes, his expression incredulous. If you can put a layer on the whole sea, but then there will be no use for the Navy. A faint voice sounded behind him, and Polusalino quickly turned around. Arthur was standing across from him with a smile on his face. You. Polusalino's eyes were full of incredulity. Since he knew that Arthur was around, he was naturally on guard at all times. Attention is always focused on the place where Hyperion is hidden in the sky. However, Arthur appeared behind without the slightest notice. If you take the opportunity to give him this. Cold sweat broke out on Polisolino's forehead. Don't worry, if I want to do something to you, I can do it now. Arthur smiled and looked ahead. Heimko's fight is free of bells and whistles, only extreme speed and super strength. And in the face of Sakaski's lava-like ability, Heimko did not dodge in the slightest. Completely positive, hard-hitting confrontation. How's it going? It's very powerful, even in the face of the Admiral, it won't fall behind at all. Seeing Arthur's expression of praise, the corners of Polisolino's mouth twitched and nodded in agreement. It is indeed very powerful. On this sea, the strength of the 4 emperors of the New World has reached such a height. However, the 4 emperors are already one less. In the past, Polisolino felt that no matter how strong Arthur was, there should be a limit. But now it seems that the gap between them is immeasurable. If you want to kill him, it is estimated that it will be an easy thing for Arthur. Even Polisolino, who has a glittering fruit and a speed of light, has to take his thoughts seriously at this moment. How's it going? Are you interested in leaving the navy? Arthur's words made Polisolino stunned. What does that mean? Is it inviting him? Polisolino looked at Arthur's face, but his calm expression made it impossible to tell what was going on in his mind. I have to say that this offer is still very tempting. Coming to Arthur's command, at least not for this monster as an enemy. However, betraying the navy also seems to be a more shameful thing. Don't answer in such a hurry, I can give you time to think about it. I just hope it doesn't take too long. Now, it's time to decide the winners. The sound was loud, but by the time Polisolino turned his head, Arthur's figure was gone. Whew! Exhaled softly. Even in the face of the warring states, Polisolino did not have such a huge psychological pressure. Meteor volcano. A loud shout came, attracting everyone's attention. Sakaski's twin fists create a large number of huge lava punches in the form of lava and launch them into the air. A meteor shower of magma punches then falls from the sky, turning the earth into a sea of lava and fire. Each meteor has the power to destroy a warship. In the face of such a dense attack, Heimko grinned and showed her white teeth. With a big sword in both hands, he rushed into the meteor shower without hesitation. Boom boom. There was a loud roar. Meteors scattered outward, staining the sky red. Is this a general-level battle? Far away, Vince Mokgage's eyes widened, and he swallowed a mouthful of saliva involuntarily. The hearts of several Titan mechs were a little inflated, and they were instantly beaten back to their original shape. It's so strong. Vince Mokgage's mouth opened slightly. The beginning and end of the battle are completely in the eyes, and the battle between the two can be described as a little dizzying. The Admiral's attack was swift and domineering, but Heimko's attack was not at all down. Oncoming attacks, perfect defense one by one. The beautiful figure is like a fairy beating among the flowers. Beautiful and stunning. Rumble. A loud explosion interrupted Vince Mokgage's thoughts. Staring around, you can see Sakaski standing there, with a chaotic aura on his body, indicating that it is not easy. And Heimko on the other side emerged from the lava, like a fire spirit, unscathed. Fighting to such an extent that Sakaski knew that it would be useless to fight any longer. It's just one person. The combat effectiveness is already on par with him. If you add one, you will definitely lose. But just like that, Sakaski's heart was full of unwillingness. Do you want to continue? You know, I'm not the only one here this time. Heimko carried a big sword, majestic, like a triumphant general. Trying to get me out of the way unless you step over my corpse. Sakaski's eyes were full of determination. Good. Then it will be done to you. Heimko didn't talk nonsense and raised her big sword with both hands. But at this moment, An inexplicable force burst out from the body. It's the fluctuation of the lawyer. It's emanating from Heimko's body. On the Hyperion Bridge, everyone, including Arthur, looked at Heimko on the screen in front of them. There was an incredible glint in his eyes. Could it be that Heimko will also become a lawyer? Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, return captain. Chapter 225. Above the calm sea, countless small squares emitting blue light are neatly arranged. The moment Heimko raised her sword, flames rose around her. And this seems to be just the beginning of a chain reaction. Hey, it's hot. Vince Mokgagi wanted to touch the flames that appeared beside him. But before he could touch it, he was frightened by a scorching temperature and immediately withdrew his fingers. The flames gradually joined together and surrounded Heimko. With the raising of the great sword, a dazzling pillar of flame light rose into the sky. The sky was fiery red, like magma churning. How so? Arthur's heart was full of doubts. This time there was no hint of the change. It's very abrupt. I didn't expect Aunt Heimko to also gain the power of the lawyer, which is really gratifying. Kiana didn't react much to the change. Judging by the current situation, it should be the lawgiver of fire. Fu Hua rubbed his chin with his right hand and nodded slightly. Each lawyer has its own unique abilities. For example, the ability of the lawgiver of reason is to understand recurrence. The lawgiver of the void can manipulate space and can move in and out of imaginary space at will. The lawgiver of thunder has the ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields. And the ability of the lawgiver of fire can speed up the movement of molecules. Captain, look at the sea. Hearing Kalian's exclamation, everyone's eyes were fixed. I saw a blue flame emerge from the calm sea below. Quiet and depressing, as if in the karmic fire of hell. And the scope of the combustion is gradually expanding outward. What the hell is this? Soon, the dark blue flames had come into contact with the warship. You can see it very clearly. There are warships made of steel, when they come across this dark blue flame. It's like snow meets the sun. Unhindered direct ablation. Feeling the sinking warship, Polisalino's face was startled, and he immediately jumped into the air. The whole body turned into a yellow light and fell to the pale blue square suspended in the sea in the distance. And turned his head to look. Surrounded by dark blue flames, half of the warship gradually sank until it disappeared. The whole process didn't make a single sound. The silence makes people's scalp tingle a little. The corners of Polisalino's mouth twitched, and he looked at Heimko, who was surrounded by flames. The strength is many times more terrifying than before. In the midst of the flames, Heimko couldn't understand why a very powerful force suddenly erupted in her body. But it's not annoying. Both hands raised their swords, and the flames condensed. The light in his eyes flickered slightly, and he slashed straight forward. Rumble. Between heaven and earth, a flame stretched hundreds of kilometers. The powerful impact caused the sea to churn in both directions, stirring up hundreds of feet of huge waves. But before it fell, it hit a scorching temperature. White steam rises. Under such a difference in temperature, dark clouds gathered in the sky, and heavy rain poured down. Time passed little by little, and the surrounding scene gradually dissipated. The sky was dark and oppressive, only the lightning flashed, giving a glimmer of light. All this comes and goes quickly. The sun shines through the dark clouds. In the center of this beam of light, next to Heimko, Arthur stood quietly. Within a radius of 1 foot, water and fire do not invade. Captain, did you do this? Heimko tilted her head slightly, with doubts in her eyes. After all, her strength suddenly skyrocketed, and the only thing Heimko could think of was Arthur. It's not. Arthur shook his head slightly. When I saw Heimko's expression, I understood that it seemed that I couldn't get an answer now. We'll look into it when we get back. Arthur said, looking ahead. What's in this pool? At the edge of the block beneath you, a large cloud of magma was still wriggling gently. Arthur took a step forward, crouched down, and poked his fingers. It's really rare for a natural devil fruit ability person to become like this. Through his breath, Arthur could tell that the guy in front of him who was like a slime was Admiral Sakaski. Captain, how did he become like this? Kiana sees fun and is never absent. Jumping straight off Hugh Blyan, staring curiously at the jelly-like object in front of him, which still had a slight breath. Maybe it's because of Heimko's previous attack. According to Arthur's guess, Heimko's attack caused the molecules in Sakaski's body to move faster. He was originally a devil fruit capable of magma fruits, but the accelerated flow of molecules made him unable to control himself. Eventually, it became what it is now. Arthur could feel the tremendous power that was gradually within this calm surface. It can be said that now Sakaski is a personal body bomb. Once exploding, its power is unmatched. You'd better not touch him with your hands, or you'll get burned, Arthur said as he threw a cage at Polisalino and turned to Vince Mockgagey. Holding the cage in both hands, Polisalino's gaze was a little glazed. What does that mean? Do you want to put Sakaski in this cage? The time to think is short, Arthur briefly instructed Vince Mockgagey. With a wave of his right hand, a huge sailing ship appeared in the middle of the sea. Then he turned and left. In the sky, Hyperion had lifted its invisibility. In a flash, it disappeared in front of everyone. Vince Mockgagey glanced at Polisalino on the other side, said nothing, and gradually moved away after getting on the boat. There are already Titan mechs ready by Arthur on board. To continue with the previous action. Dominate the entire North Sea. Although there is the assistance of the Titan mech, this process is destined to take a while. What should I do? Everyone gradually left, and Polisalino realized his situation at the moment. On the sea, only the blocks suspended under your feet are the place to stand. The warships melted, and there were no means of transport. Alas, I can only find help. Polisalino shook his head helplessly. He had already imagined it in his mind. That weird look on the face of the people from the Navy division when they came over. But there is no other way to do it today. Thinking in his heart, he took out a small phone worm from his bosom and explained it briefly. The next thing is to wait patiently. His eyes gradually attracted to Sakaski, who was slowly squirming on the ground. Are you really Sakaski? Polisalino couldn't have imagined that the invincible Sakaski had become like this. A well-deserved black history. It's a pity that I don't have a camera phone bug on my body now. Otherwise, you must record this happy moment. Here, obediently climb in and take you to the Navy headquarters to see if there is any way to recover. Polisalino said as he opened the cage in his hand and lowered it to the ground. And the slime-like sticky object, as if it really understood, slowly crawled in. Soon, people from the naval branch had already arrived to support. There are still a few traces of the Great War, and when people look at it, their hearts are full of shock. When Polisalino boarded the ship, the blocks that had been suspended in the sea gradually dissipated one by one. It's really speechless. Polisalino shook his head. For Arthur's behavior, he sighed slightly. On the way back, Polisalino had been pondering what Arthur had said. Weighing the pros and cons, joining Arthur's side definitely outweighs the disadvantages. The ideological struggle along the way finally came to the headquarters of the Navy. Is it still a face-to-face confrontation with Arthur? Sengoku looked at Polisalino with a solemn face. Not Arthur himself, but a man by his side? Polisalino shook his head and placed the cage in his hand on the table. The objects inside can be seen through the gaps in the cage. This left everyone a little confused. What is this? Where's Sakaski? Two questions in a row, Polisalino pointed to the cage and said. The clump in the cage is Sakaski. What? One by one, surprised eyes fell on the inside of the cage. Oh yes, you must not open the cage, the current Sakaski is a time bomb, if you are not careful, I am afraid that the entire Navy headquarters will be buried together. On the way back, Porisalino was not idle. Some of the situations can probably still be detected. What the hell is going on? It was not clear on the phone, and now, Porisalino slowly told what had happened, in every detail. Naturally, even the words invited by Arthur could be spoken. At their level, even if they say it, it doesn't hurt to love it. You said yes. Although Sengoku knew that his question was a little abrupt, he still asked. If I promise, I won't come back, so let's solve the problem of Sakaski first. As soon as he finished speaking, the door opened, and a figure walked in with a cold breath. What happened? On the other side, in Hyperion, Arthur walked out of the bedroom with a confused look on his face. How's that going on, Captain? Have you found out what's wrong? In the living room, Rita said softly. Both the degree of wetness and the elasticity are the same as before, no different. Arthur rubbed his chin with his right hand and slowly sat down on the couch. Captain. Rita's eyes flickered and she knew what Arthur meant. After all, Arthur has been carefully studying Heimko for the past 2 days. I want to find out why Heimko suddenly gained the power of a lawyer. Forget it, it doesn't matter, it doesn't hurt anyway. Arthur shook his head and stretched slightly. I haven't had a good rest in the past 2 days, and I feel really uncomfortable. At the staircase, Heimko walked down wearing a red light veil. Looming and alluring. Captain, don't bother me again these 2 days, you know. Heimko looked at Arthur very seriously. He, don't worry. Cut, man. Seeing that Arthur promised so happily, Heimko couldn't help but pout. In the sky, Hyperion quickly crossed the sea and came to a no-man's sea, gradually descending. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 226. In an uninhabited sea, Huberia drove slowly forward. Captain, why are you standing on the deck alone? Are you thinking about life? Rita always spoke in a seductive tone. I'm thinking about what the Navy headquarters will do next. Arthur said with a smile on the corner of his mouth, in fact, in the end, it is nothing more than a question of war or not. By now, the Navy headquarters should have a clear idea of our strength. But if we continue to expand, it will inevitably lead to confrontation with the world government. So there's only one end result. Arthur looked at Rita. Fight, I believe everyone will not refuse. Rita had a smile on her face. But this smile is a thorny rose. Originally, my idea was to take my time, control the 4 seas first, and then go to the New World, and I will definitely have a lot of fun along the way. And now? Rita asked. Now I want to do it in one step, although the rest of the year may be a little boring. But I really like to enjoy a quiet life rather than being disturbed by people all the time. Arthur said, looking in a certain direction. There, the flag of the Navy shines exceptionally. And the figure standing on the deck is even more familiar. One of the 3 admirals of the Navy, Pheasant. Look, hit one, and here comes another. Arthur sighed softly. I'm really afraid of trouble. Heimko, looking at the way he looks, it seems that he is here to find you. Behind him, everyone also walked out. These people are looking for trouble again, and Jitsi, do you want to take a break? Kiana looked at Heimko with concern. You. Heimko's index finger tapped Kiana's eyebrows fiercely. This little bit of caution was still being played out in front of her. Captain, leave it to me. Heimko has never shied away from fighting. Let's go to the island over there, and do it? The direction in which Huberia changed careers was instantly perceived by the pheasant. But without the slightest evasion, he followed. If you read a violent novel, go to Feel a Novel Network. The two sides stood still, and the battle was on the verge of breaking out. Pheasant had planned to use her ice to her advantage, but as soon as he fought, he realized how wrong he was. The lawgiver of fire controls the movement between molecules. Any item made up of molecules is capable of manipulation. Even ice is no exception. Burning ice, pheasants have not seen before. But today he saw it. With such a foul ability, the pheasant was completely powerless to fight back. Victory quickly split the winner. Arthur ignored it and left with Hyperion. And then half a month later, in the territory of the 4 emperors of the New World, a battle will take place every few days. The same happened in the Holy Land of Maryjoy. What the result will be, no one knows. But it was evident to all. After a while, there was a certain shift in the attitude of both the world government and the 4 emperors. And the nameless island before has resolutely become the center of the world. Became a true uncrowned king. The book is complete.